Okay, let's unpack this. In our, well, increasingly digital lives, we're constantly facing this challenge, right? Keeping our online identities secure.
Yeah, absolutely. Passwords, they're supposed to be the keys, but
Yeah.
they're always being targeted.
And data breaches, it feels like they're almost an everyday thing now.
It really does. That's why today we're doing a deep dive into something, well, potentially really innovative, an approach that might fundamentally change how we look at online security.
Could this tech be the end of passwords as we know them? Maybe.
Well, it's certainly aiming high. We're looking at a company called BlockSmith, or BSU, and their product, the yet-unphishable-password.
Yet-unphishable-password.
Yeah, internally they sometimes call it Pleione authentication.
Mm-hmm.
Our mission today really is to get a handle on the core tech, explore its fantastic potential.
Where it fits in the market.
Exactly. It's market fit,
Yeah.
and also the real benefits for users, individuals and businesses.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Passwords, we use them constantly, but they're a pain and a huge security weak spot. What's the fundamental problem here?
Well, the fundamental flaw, I think, is that traditional systems actually store our login details.
Right, like in a big database somewhere.
Precisely. And that database becomes this massive prime target for cyber criminals, a single point of failure.
And if they get in?
If they get in, huge amounts of sensitive info can be exposed. And, despite all the warnings, people still use weak passwords or reuse them across different sites.
Guilty as charged sometime.
We all are, probably. And even the newer stuff like passwordless systems, they often just rely on stored digital keys.
Which could also be stolen.
Potentially, yeah. And MFA, multi-factor authentication, while it's definitely better, it can still be bypassed with clever phishing attacks.
So we're always sort of playing catch-up, reacting to breaches.
It's pretty much been the landscape. A lot of focus on trying to prevent the breach, building higher walls, or helping clean up the mess after it happens.
But BlockSmith is looking at it differently.
Exactly. And this is where I think their innovation really shines. They're not just focused on stopping the breach itself, although their tech definitely helps with that.
Okay.
Their core idea is about making any data that is stolen totally useless. Their yet-unphishable-password system, it aims to transform even simple passwords into something unbreakable.
Without making it harder for the user.
That's the goal. Zero extra friction for the user. It's a real shift in thinking. For decades, it's been about stronger walls. BlockSmith is kind of removing the treasure from inside the walls.
Okay. Unbreakable password system. That sounds, ambitious. How does this Pleione system actually do that?
It's really a multi-layered approach, which is fascinating. First, there's advanced cryptography involved. Sophisticated math to make the password transformation really hard to reverse or crack.
Standard practice for good security, right?
Yes, but then they add this twist. They use a vastly expanded character set, not just the usual ASCII characters we see.
What do you mean expanded?
They use the full Unicode set. Thousands of characters, including, get this, emojis.
Emojis.
Yeah.
In my password transformation.
Yep. Something like 4,096 possibilities compared to the, maybe 95 or so in standard ASCII sets. This makes brute force attacks just trying every combination practically impossible.
Even if my original password was like password 123.
Even then, the system takes that simple input and turns it into something incredibly robust cryptographically. So your original weak password isn't what's actually doing the securing.
Wow. Okay, so that deals with weak passwords, but what about the storage issue?
Right, that brings us to their keyless authentication. This is crucial. It means they don't store your actual credentials. No password, no hash, no identifiable login data like that.
So, what do they use to log you in then?
Okay, so for every single login attempt, the system dynamically generates the authentication keys on the fly.
Generated each time.
Each time. And these keys are derived from a mix of things. Your username, the password you typed in, the specific site or system you're logging into, like the URL, and other secure contextual stuff.
So there's no central pot of password hashes waiting to be stolen.
Exactly. Their own line is nothing stored, nothing to steal. It directly tackles that main vulnerability we talked about.
And because they're generated dynamically.
Even if someone somehow intercepted the key from one login session, it's useless for the next one. Each login is unique, protected.
Okay, that sounds incredibly secure already, but I heard there's another piece, something about how we type.
Yes. This is where it gets really, really interesting. They add this unique biometric layer using typing biometrics, behavioral analysis.
Analyzing how I type, my speed and rhythm.
Exactly that. Subtle variations in your speed, the pauses between keys, how long you hold a key down.
Yeah.
The system learned your specific rhythm, your pattern, It creates a unique typing fingerprint.
The typing fingerprint, huh?
Yeah, and this adds another critical factor. Even if someone somehow got hold of your transform password,
They still couldn't log in.
not unless they could also perfectly mimic your specific typing behavior, which is incredibly hard to do. This is what makes it genuinely resistant to phishing. The password alone isn't enough.
It's like needing the key and knowing the secret handshake.
That's a great analogy. It's not just what you type, but how you type it. It's a fascinating approach, isn't it?
It really is. So, unbreakable transformation, keyless dynamic generation, typing biometrics. What else?
Well, on top of all that, there's the hashless architecture.
Hashless. I thought hashing passwords was standard security practice.
It is, typically. Even if the password isn't stored plain text, a hashed version usually is. But those hashes can be stolen, taken offline, and attacked with brute force to try and reveal the original passwords.
The cracking problem.
Right. BlockSmith's system avoids this entirely by simply not storing any password hash. Not online, not offline, nowhere.
No hash at all.
None. Their materials actually say that with their system, the cracking problem cannot even be formulated traditionally. There's just no static target for attackers to crack.
So even if someone hacked BlockSmith's servers,
There'd be no password hashes to steal and try to decrypt later. It removes that whole attack vector.
okay. And you mentioned something about vaultless, too.
Yeah, reinforcing that same principle.
Yeah.
Minimize stored secrets. Lots of systems rely on secure vaults to store encryption keys, API keys, other critical stuff. BlockSmith takes a different path. They create these secrets and keys on demand, only when needed for an authentication or transaction.
Just in time.
Pretty much. And this isn't just for user passwords. It extends to what they call non-human identities, or NHIDs.
Like for servers or applications talking to each other.
Exactly. Managing secrets for machines and applications without needing a central, potentially vulnerable vault. That nothing stored, nothing to steal idea runs deep through the whole architecture.
Okay, technically this sounds incredibly robust, groundbreaking even. But who is this actually for? Who needs this level of security? What's the market fit?
Well, connecting it back to real-world needs, their initial target market seemed to be small to medium-sized enterprises, SMEs.
Why them specifically?
Because they often face significant cyber threats, but maybe don't have the huge resources or dedicated teams that larger corporations do for complex security solutions. This offers high-end security potentially without that massive overhead.
Makes sense. But it sounds like it could be useful for bigger players too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The potential is definitely there for larger businesses, government organizations, anyone needing really high levels of data protection. The tech is fundamentally scalable.
Any specific industries jumping out?
Yeah, their analysis points to sectors like banking, finance, e-commerce, communications, also education, healthcare, manufacturing, places with really sensitive data.
Right.
Plus broader horizontal applications in government agencies. And because it uses Unicode and thinks about things like GDPR and CCPA compliance, it's built with international use in mind.
So scalable, international.
And fundamentally addressing that core need. Securing digital identities and data in an era where breaches and ransomware are just constant threats.
And that focus on post-breach resilience you mentioned.
Yeah, that's key. Accepting that breaches might still happen, but ensuring that if they do, the attackers walk away with nothing truly valuable. That's a powerful differentiator in today's climate.
Okay, let's pivot to the users then. The actual people logging in day to day, whether it's employees or just us online. What are the real tangible benefits for us?
This is critical, you're right. One of the biggest things is this blend of low friction and really high security.
The holy grail, basically.
Kind of, yeah. You can potentially keep using passwords that are easy for you to remember, the kind people actually use. But behind the scenes, you're getting this like military-grade protection.
Without having to jump through extra hoops.
Exactly, no extra effort. And the typing biometrics part makes it super resistant to phishing, which is how so many accounts get compromised.
Right.
And because there are no stored credentials or static hashes, even if your password somehow ended up on the dark web from some other breach, it would be basically meaningless in the context of this system.
That gives you some peace of mind, doesn't it? How does it stack up against, say, password managers? A lot of people use those now.
That's a good question. It addresses some potential weaknesses in password managers. While they're helpful for generating and storing complex passwords, they still rely on that central vault.
Which could become a target itself.
Theoretically, yes. A very attractive target for sophisticated attackers. With BlockSmith's approach, There is no central vault of user secrets to compromise in the same way.
Okay.
And it really shifts the burden of complexity, instead of you needing to create and remember dozens of super complex, unique passwords.
Which nobody actually does consistently.
Right. The system handles the complexity automatically. This could make it way easier for businesses to enforce strong security without that usual pushback from users about difficult passwords.
And for the businesses implementing it, is it a massive overhaul?
Well, according to their documentation, it's designed more as an overlay, something that sits on top of existing authentication systems.
So less ripping and replacing.
That seems to be the intention. Minimizing integration costs and hassle working with existing websites and infrastructure. And here's a slightly wild thought they raise. Because the typing biometrics add such a strong, unphishable layer. They suggest it might even become safe in some situations for users to write down their password.
Whoa, write down password. That goes against everything we're told.
I know, it sounds counterintuitive. But the logic is, if the password alone isn't enough to get in because you also need the unique typing pattern, then the written password itself isn't the critical vulnerability it used to be.
That's definitely something to think about. Okay, we've talked a lot about the theory. The tech sounds amazing. But does it actually work? Is there proof?
Good question. They do point to successful beta testing. They ran trials with different kinds of users, power users, tech staff, operational folks, even executives.
On real platforms?
Yeah, things like Office 365, LinkedIn. The main goal of the tests was to see if they could deliver that complex, high-level security without making it difficult or annoying for the user. Low friction was key.
And the results?
According to their materials, excellent results. Users apparently reported a seamless experience and felt increased confidence in their account security.
So people actually used it and liked it, basically.
It seems so. These tests offer some real-world validation that the core idea, strong security, easy experience, is actually achievable. It's not just theory.
Okay, so it's not just a cool concept on a whiteboard. It's been tested in the wild.
Exactly. The beta tests back up those user benefits. Ease of use, plus high security, phishing resistance, less worry about dark web data.
And supports their claims about setting new benchmarks.
Yeah, by getting rid of stored credentials, transforming simple passwords, being hashless, and essentially the system not knowing your password in a way that can be stolen.
Okay, this is all incredibly compelling. Let's try and wrap our heads around the key innovations here. What really stands out?
I think it's the combination, the synergy. You've got the transformation of simple passwords into these super strong crypto keys. Then there's the keyless authentication, nothing stored, keys generated dynamically. Add in that unique biometric layer with the typing patterns. And underpinning it all is that hashless, vaultless architecture that just eliminates so many traditional attack surfaces. It's really all those pieces working together.
And the core benefits boiled down for people and for companies.
For individuals, for employees. It's that rare combo. Really easy to use, but incredibly secure, less hassle, less worry about phishing, less risk from breaches.
And for businesses,
a much stronger security posture overall, reduced risk of those really damaging, expensive breaches, and potentially an easier implementation path because it can overlay existing systems.
It really does feel like it tackles a fundamental weakness in how we've been doing digital security for decades across so many areas.
Absolutely. It's broad. It hits that core vulnerability of passwords without forcing everyone to completely change how they work or rip out all their existing tech.
So, final thought then. We live in this world where data breaches feel almost inevitable, right? Could this kind of approach one that basically plans for breaches by making the stolen data useless? Could this be the thing that finally starts to tip the scales back towards, well, the good guys in this cybersecurity fight?
It's a powerful thought, isn't it? It definitely presents a compelling vision for maybe a safer digital future. Lots for you to think about there.
Definitely. If you want to learn more about BlockSmith and these ideas, we really encourage you to look into it further. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.